Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen Era.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership. Hello and welcome everyone to today's podcast. I am super excited. In today's episode, we're going to be exploring communication and leadership with a very special guest who Christine and I have both worked with very closely and have had the pleasure of getting to know. I want to welcome John Bates. John is from the Executive Speaker Success program, and he has done amazing transformative work with clients like NASA, Johnson & Johnson Innovation Labs, Boston Scientific, Air Liquide, and many others. John, welcome to today's podcast.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. It's good to be here. It's transformative.
Such a great word.
So, John, usually I let guests pick one word that we're gonna try to work into the podcast during the podcast. You know, where it's appropriate. We're not going to choose that word today.
I think, Steve, you would struggle with transformative today.
Yes, it's
not
my
your word.
It is not my word. It's my immutable law word that I don't. Somebody else struggles with, but goes for it all the time, which I'm very proud of her for that. All right, so John, you are a speaking coach. You are a leadership coach. I have worked with you. You have literally transformed my speaking experience when I'm in large groups, small groups. I use what you taught me to connect to people. And you said, hey, Steve, when you're connecting, when people stay after the talk, they want more engagement with you. And that just kept happening over and over. And it got to the point where I started getting invited to be the keynote speaker at graduations for leadership programs and other events in my community, which I would have never even thought would have occurred or would have possibly accepted before I was working with you. So I want to thank you for that because it's my way of contributing back to the community that I live in, my business lives in, my whole team lives in. So, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about, how to work with a speaking coach and, oh my gosh, you have to be like, you've coached over 1,000 TED Talk speakers, I think, something like that, a lot of them. But I tell people you don't have to be a TED Talk speaker. You can speak and make an impact right in your community where you live.
That's right. And I have never worked for TED, but I have attended TED a number of times, and I've trained a number of people who've spoken on the TED stage, a whole bunch of people who've spoken on the various TEDx stages, and I've trained thousands of people to create TED-like talks for events, at large corporations and, that kind of thing. So, I think you are absolutely right. And here's how I'll say it, Steve. I'm going to switch it up a little bit because I think that TED gets credit for repopularizing the kind of format that works for human beings and has always worked for human beings. It's how everything important happened all the way up until television and radio. And even then, it's still the most important format. One person with great ideas, expressing them well and making a huge difference in their community, right? So, you've been giving TED-like talks in your community, and I know how important it is to you to give back to your community. And I'm very honored to hear what you just said and that I've made a difference and helped you leverage that difference that you make by being such a great speaker in front of large groups now. And that's really, really cool to hear.
So, John, what makes you so passionate about the work that you do with people in teaching leadership skills and communication skills?
I'll tell you a quick story about it because I think it illustrates where it all came from and why I'm so passionate. I was always the guy with the soft skills. in my jobs. And I got on the internet in 1987 and started working at a .com company in 94, worked with a lot of hard skills people. I know it's a spectrum, but some people are more hard skills, some people are more soft skills. I was more soft skills, jealous of the people with the hard skills. They got paid more, they had more education. They thought they called what I did fluffy, even though I raised several $100 million with my various teams in Silicon Valley and beyond. They still called what I did fluffy, and I went around feeling like I wasn't as valuable, and it was just awkward. And then in 2009, I went to the TED conference for the first time, and I had two huge realizations. The first one was, wow, that is powerful. That is really powerful. Public speaking, when it's done that well, is enormously impactful. So that started the wheels turning for me on just that, this really is something. There's something to this. And then I had another realization. I give myself a little bit of credit for this. I realized that even though I had basically been a public speaker my whole life, working as an evangelist for different .com companies, speaking at conferences, usually being the best speaker or one of the best speakers at those conferences, as I sat there at TED watching these talks, I realized I have not been doing that, and so I came back from that experience and got very involved in the TED and TEDx community. And at one of the first ever TEDx events, I was part of the team putting it on. We had this guy who had all the hard skills in the world, had the most exciting topic, was the one I was waiting for all day. And when he got up on stage and started to speak, everybody in the room checked out because he was so nervous that we thought we were going to throw up. And it was just awkward and really sad. And so I was very sad for a minute. And then the evil part of me popped out. And I remember sitting there going, hard skills guy is blowing it, calls what I do fluffy. And as I was indulging the evil part of myself for a second, my friend came over and totally changed my life. He leaned down and he said, dude, we got to do something to help people like this. Mm. And it was like, the angels sang, the clouds parted, epiphany moment. And I realized that if I just got over myself, I could totally make a difference for that guy. If I just got rid of the chip on my shoulder. So I did. I tossed the chip off my shoulder and I went home that night and I started working on the training that I'm going to be doing at your retreat, that I do, for the astronauts, that I've done for Johnson & Johnson, done all over the world. Like, it really changed my life is what I'm trying to say. And what I did differently because of that moment when I started working on this training is, with that guy in mind, I did my best to base everything I did in human evolutionary biology and human neurophysiology, so I could show people not only what works when it comes to communicating with human beings, but also why it works based in science. And that did a few things. The first thing is it works because it's based in science. I didn't even think of that, but yes, it works really well because it's based in science. The second thing is it gave me a backdoor in with people who have hard skills, and they don't, when you say, listen, we've got to tell a personal story, they're like, I'm not going to do that, like, forget it, personal story. This is work, It gives me a backdoor in with them to give them some emotional intelligence and give them a way to scientifically access those personal things and all that stuff that is missing when they only use logic to communicate, Mm-hmm. So I say logic is necessary, but it is not sufficient. There's something else, communicating with human beings is not logical, it's biological. And when you understand the biology, you can make it logical again. And logic is definitely necessary. What you say has to make sense. It has to work. It has to be a good idea. But have you noticed how many times someone with a really good idea, like, that idea doesn't get implemented and the kind of less good idea gets implemented because that person was a better communicator? I want people's communication to be as mighty as their ideas. And so that moment at that TEDx event was where all this started. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I want the best world possible. And I want the best ideas to win in the marketplace of ideas. And I've seen far too many people with brilliant, brilliant ideas just get passed over because they couldn't communicate them. And it's not fair, and it's not the way it should be, but should has nothing to do with how the world actually works, right? So anyway, I guess you can tell I'm passionate about it. I didn't mean to go on so long, but that's why. That's where it comes from. I want people's communication to be as good as their ideas.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, John. I'm sitting over here laughing because, though I know I have high emotional intelligence and I have, hard skills, like I kind of go in like a bull in the china shop, and
Yeah.
I've always been that way. And when I first learned of you, it was on a podcast where I heard you speak on a podcast with Mike McAllowitz. I'm like, man, who is this guy? Like, he's telling me all the stuff, I know I should be doing and I'm not doing because I liked to do so much behind the scenes. And I didn't, though I think I'm a good communicator, I can communicate, but I had that kind of bull in the china shop approach to where I'm like, I'm just going to say what I'm going to say, when I choose to say it.
Yeah.
And, that was kind of the challenge where I was like, well, I was doing it intentionally because I wasn't wanting to show up and communicate and connect the way that you're saying, to where I'm like, I'm going to share a personal story with you. I'm going to connect with you,
Right.
in my relationships historically. I would keep people at arm's length. I would let certain people in my bubble.
Yes,
and,
I remember.
you were on a need to know basis. And most of the time you didn't need to know.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another piece of it, to where we may have this gift of communication, but we're not allowing all this, kind of like special pieces to show up at the same time. And I think that's where I struggled, to where I was ambitious. I wanted to lead. I needed to lead it as a business owner, but I had kind of this hard shell exterior, and I needed to figure out how I could show up as myself and communicate and lead, and connect with people in my way. So that's one of the things that I realized you were saying. And in working with you over the years, kind of pulling back the layers, I was like, oh, these are the challenges. We all have different challenges. Some of them are, some have soft skills, some have hard skills, some have a mixture of both, but we're not always strong in communicating and connecting. And that can really impact our leadership in our business, and getting the right people on our team to help us move things forward.
So there are two things that I want to say to that. But before I say them, I want to ask you what is something that you, actually, there's three things I want to say. Here's the first thing I'll say. I hear a lot of times from people that what I train them in and coach them in is stuff that they knew they should be doing, or they had heard somewhere before or whatever, but they just weren't doing it. And for some reason or another, the way that I say things makes it easily accessible. And that to me is just one of the greatest compliments that I could get is, I'm not the most original person in the world, and I'm not making up all brand new stuff about communicating because it's tens of thousands of years old, but to make it accessible to people and to have them get, and that's part of the beauty of not just what to do, but why, right? Understanding the why behind things. And then about two other things I want to say, but I want to know what's something that you implemented that you got from me that made a difference in your leadership? Like, what was one of the harder things?
Yeah, so I think it was around, the mindset of expectations, right? That there was this expectation or idea about how you should show up and communicate as a leader. And then in my mind, I was like, and then there's me,
Right.
which is just
And
kind of,
I'm not that, and I need to show up different than I actually am. And
right. So there is that narrative that I was creating, based off of how I think in society, how we're raised, right? To where it's like
Right.
whatever we're exposed to, we create these narratives and these rules that we abide by. And we go, oh, this is what has to be done, or this is the way that it is. And really, the truth of the matter is it's not. Those are just limited beliefs, that we were taught, and that doesn't have to be that way. So I think, to simplify it, I understood that just because I was taught how a leader should be didn't mean that's how I needed to show up as a leader. And I needed to figure out who I was as a leader.
Beautiful. And that is always going to be the most powerful way that you can show up, is you authentically as a leader, like you would do leader, not like they showed it on TV or like you saw it somewhere else, or, had some expectation from wherever. Right. So that's wonderful. Okay. So if I helped you with that, then that's a huge win for me. Like, thank you. I'm so glad I could do that. And I'm so glad that you listened. Like, it wouldn't have happened if you didn't listen and go do it. Okay, the two things that I wanted to say were, one, there's this, I do some work with it's Quicken, right? Makes QuickBooks. Yeah. So I do some work with Quicken. And what is that the name of the company?
So Intuit does QuickBooks. Yeah, Intuit.
That's what I'm looking for. I work with Intuit, and I've trained a number of people there. And the woman who used to run the HR department there said something really simple and really brilliant in one of our conversations when we were talking about storytelling and leadership and how people show up at that really high level of leadership, right? And she said, well, people want to know their leaders. I mean, okay, that is super obvious, super simple, and really brilliant to realize. People want to know their leaders. And the way they get to know their leaders is through stories, and stories that illustrate how you learned some value that you think is really important, or a mistake you made that taught you something really. Those are hard stories to actually tell because we feel embarrassed. But once we tell them, nobody else on the team is going to make that mistake because you've now told them about it. And they think, wow, she's pretty courageous. Like she's got some self-confidence to tell us that story. It actually helps. It's actually a good thing. So people want to know their leaders. And then, so that's a great thing to remember. And then the other thing that I heard in what you said, Christine, and I don't know if you remember this or not, I'd love to know if you do, but I talk about how I used to be responsible for what I said, right? And I thought that was a pretty high level of responsibility. But when I was responsible for what I said, that led to me checking the box, I told you so, pretty often, it didn't work. Well, I told you so, right? Because I'd been responsible for what I said something. But when I checked the box, I told you so, it means we didn't get the result we wanted. And that was not okay. And at a certain point, it dawned on me that I could go a step further and actually be responsible, not just for what I said. I could start trying to check the box. I landed it over there, right? I could be responsible for what they heard. And so rather than coming in like a bull in a china closet and saying it all, and maybe it is all true. Maybe what you're saying is all true. But how could you say it so they could hear it versus just say it so you check the box, I said it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that really has to do, I think, with, expectations, right? Because communication and expectations, I feel, go hand in hand in, the cycle of a conversation. And I can talk to others, I can communicate to others, but unless I really understand what they understood, and I think you have a really great point here, that changed how I showed up in the moment in some of the
Yeah.
biggest challenges in my business, because I could say, oh, why didn't you do this right? Or this wasn't done to, my specs, or, you went and focused on this task instead of this. But when I slowed down and took a deep breath and I responded instead of reacted, I could say, okay, where did I needed, or my expectations, where did they not land? And
Yeah.
where am I not being clear? And then it became a coaching conversation versus a finger pointing situation.
Perfect. And I got to imagine that works better.
It really does.
That works a lot better. Less fight. Slow is fast with communication too, taking the time to share about the leader, to share about the struggles, the challenges, and it connects people to them. And that's one of the things that I found after I did my public speaking, any kind of other communication that went beyond that, whether it was fundraising through mail, through email, also, so that communication, that verbal communication, public speaking, it rippled like a pebble through all communication, because now they have a stronger connection. So all forms of communication became more effective because they knew the reason and the story behind the mission.
Isn't it amazing how it works so well. And it makes me think of something that I want to say right, like real quickly, right around that, because a lot of people avoid these kinds of things because they've seen people do it manipulatively, and they've seen people do it inauthentically and poorly, right? But when you do this authentically, when you make that emotional connection and you really think about your communication, and you communicate really well, and you have fabulous results, it's not because you manipulated people. It's because you were authentic and you communicated really well, and you gave them an opportunity that they wanted to take advantage of. So when you raise funds, then people give you that money. They're glad to give you that money. They want you to go do what you're doing with it, And so I think that a lot of times people focus on, they're like, oh, I gotta start with this personal story, right? It's like, okay, the reason people feel like that is because they've seen people do it badly, and they've seen people do it as a manipulation and inauthentically. That is manipulation. That's the dark side of the force. That is not what I'm talking about. When you do it authentically and you do it for good, for everyone's good, that is called influence. So it's not about manipulating people. It's about genuinely influencing them and having them do things that they are bought in on. Because we all know that if you can get somebody to do something for a while, but unless they're bought in on it, they're not going to do it well, and it's not going to last, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. There's a new term Christina and I have come up with. It's called inspired, desired accountability. So it's creating inspiration, which people then become desired to be held at a certain accountability on their own. They're holding and setting their own higher level, their own higher standards. And it's through that shared challenge, or, that authenticity. Share, hey, I struggled too, and I went through that, and this is what I did. And, you're here and you can do it too. And making, one of the things is sharing the story. And then we make the audience or our team or our community the hero. Because in the fundraising, they need to be the hero. I need them to step up with their funds and to get their friends, because we're building and improving their own community. So I think that communication and that inspiration has to be authentic, like you said. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. And that's where you see heroes come and go.
Well, and Steve, I love what you said about making them the hero, right? It's one of the quotes that I have said a million billion times from Nancy Duarte, don't be the hero of your own talk. And I say it goes further than that. Don't be the hero of your own team. Don't be the hero of your own family. Don't be the hero of your own whatever. Make the audience the hero. Make them the hero. Don't be Luke Skywalker. Be Yoda. There's my lightsaber pen, you know. But I love that you have so deeply internalized making them the hero, because that is what works. And you are particularly good at that, you know.
Yeah, and it's their organization, it's their community. And what's awesome about it is to see them see the fruits of that inspiration and the fruits of their contribution. And then it just keeps it going, and it keeps it rolling, you know, into the future. And, you know, they're doing things that are building, you know, for the future of their organization. And one of the things I love to share, you know, if you're not telling the story of your organization, who will? And that's why it's so important. We need to be there and make sure that the story is told correctly. And especially in the cultural and historical societies, that's what we're about. We're about preserving and sharing and telling that story into the future.
Well, and you know, something that's really interesting about that, I think, Steve, is that, so, you know, for those organizations, but also for your business, right? And studies show that they'll take somebody and have them tell a story really well, like a well-told story, and they'll do an fMRI, you know, in real time of their brain and look at how it looks. And then they'll take an fMRI of everybody in the audience while that story is being told. And what happens is very quickly, if it's a good story and it's well told, those images all start to look very, very, very similar. A well-told story entrains the brains of the audience. And then they had that audience go tell somebody else what they had heard. And the more the original entrainment, the stronger that was, the more likely it was that they would pass that story on really, really well, really accurately, and train that next person's brain. And it would look a lot like the first person's brain, because that's just how it works. You know, really good stories, really well told. Not only does it impact the person that's hearing it, but it gives them the ability to go tell that story to someone else and have it be effective, even removed that much. So imagine if you have a really good story about your business and why you do what you do, and you tell it to someone, and then they bump into somebody that could potentially use your services, or somebody asks them about, why does your lawn look so good, or who do you use for your books, or whatever, right?
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro.
They'll be able to say, well, you know what? I use this guy and blah, 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 blah. And they'll tell that story And they'll tell it with great fidelity if you've crafted it and told it well to them. Now, did that make sense?
It does. So one of the experiences I'm going through right now, we're celebrating our 40th anniversary in business. In the lawn care and landscape business. I mean, it's like 5% of the industry ever gets to 40%. Probably 5% of any industry gets to 40 years.
Yeah.
So we're putting these storyboards together in these storybooks. So I have all these photos that are old. So I'm sharing these stories with my team. Like, yeah, that was the garage that had a dirt floor. And we had 2 push mowers. And then this was our first truck and our second truck. And my team is connecting with these stories, and we've been sharing them with some of our customers too. And they're great stories because people see the company now and they're like, oh, it just, it looks like we just walked into this multi-million dollar. It just always existed. And to see the dirt floor garage and the truck with the dent in it and how it grew from them, there's a huge connection. And then I share, and that's why I take this business so serious. And that's why I am making sure that it's going into the future for you guys. Yeah. It's for you. I'm doing this. And it just makes the whole thing just change. But then I see, they have a bigger commitment to the company, to our clients, to our vendors, to the community. Yeah. And for me, that's the whole deal.
And a lot of people wouldn't share that stuff, or don't think they should share that stuff, or don't think that a leader should, it's one of the things that frustrates me. It's like just about everything that we see modeled in business communication is pretty much the opposite of what actually works.
Yes.
Have a poker face, don't be personal, don't ever show your emotion. Like, none of that stuff actually works. Mm-hmm. It's just, I think it's fear driven.
Yeah. And I've seen that with, other business owners. And one of the things that in working with our clients is I'm very transparent. It's like business is real life. Just, it's hard. You got to roll up your sleeves. You get kicked in the face. You're out there, on the arena floor, just bearing it all, giving it your all. But if we're not being transparent and honest, and we're in the industry of helping others, then we're really doing a huge disservice. And it's hard for me not to share my challenges. When we've lost employees, we've had, bad people on staff that have done unethical things. It's every business has those challenges. We have as well have lost really great employees that decided to go somewhere else. We've had bad customers. So sharing, those challenges and how we managed it or what we're navigating with our clients, I've noticed over the years, it's built trust with them. Yeah. They're seeing us as like, oh, they're human. They're having the same challenges. And they're connecting with us and telling us, what those challenges are. And even the other day, someone on a call asked, and it was a great question. And she's probably going to listen to this podcast because she listens to every one of them. But she said, she asked, what's the one thing you wouldn't want anybody in your business to know? And that was a really tough question for me because
you don't want them to know.
there isn't anything in my business. I would be willing to tell anybody that I'm working with, that I'm helping, that's entrusting in me and, growing their business and working through their challenges. I would share every single challenge, even my current challenges with them, but, because together, when they're going to learn something and I might learn something and see some insight too. Yeah. It's just, I don't think it's fair. If we're going to play the game of business, we need to be willing to be open about the good, the bad, and the ugly, in business.
I agree. Yeah.
And not just, I think, with our clients, but with our team members too, which is where I think the communication with leadership comes into place as being willing and vulnerable, to share those challenges.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things, there's an exercise that we're going to do, and it's in my course. And it comes down to because I know that one of the things that you wanted to talk about a little bit was the neurobiology of communication. And one of the most, and this leads right into that. So one of the most important pieces is the saying, you've got to believe it. If you don't, they won't. Right? Now, okay, John, come on. What do you mean neurobiology? Like that's sales 101. That's everybody's heard that a million times. But here's the thing. The reason that's true is because we all have mirror neurons. And someone won a Nobel Prize for this few years back. But we all have neurons in our bodies that fire when we see other people having experiences and going through things. So if someone walks in the door and they're happy, woo, we're happy. What? What's going on? And if they walk in and we're sad, oh, well, they get sad, and we get sad. We don't know why. Maybe they lost the lottery and we won, but we're still sad for a minute because they're sad. It's mirror neurons. So, I believe you've got to take mirror neurons into account and understand that they're always mirroring you. When you walk in the room and everybody turns to look at you, they're mirroring you. When you raise your hand to say something in a meeting, they're mirroring you. When you are at the top of the hierarchy, they're always mirroring you. That's what's wrong with some of these big businesses that, just have such horrible, it's because the leaders are just that stuff, gets mirrored all the way down the organization. Same thing with great leaders and great organizations. That stuff gets mirrored. And, if I were talking about cooking instead of public speaking and leadership, and I was doing a demonstration, let's say, and I was chopping up some purple carrots with a big old butcher knife and telling you about the benefits of the anthocyanins. Okay, so here's the thing. If you're watching, you jumped, and I don't have purple carrots. I don't have a big old butcher knife, but you still jumped because you have mirror neurons. They're always on. They're always working. And as a leader, especially when you take on that they are always mirroring you, that makes an enormous difference. Give them something good to mirror. And if you don't like what you see over there, maybe it is something over there, but the place where there's real power is to start looking over here and say, what could I do differently? What could I do better? How could I give them something better to mirror?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that goes back to the whole idea that we've probably heard, growing up. It's learned behavior, right? How we communicate to others and what we communicate, the style, it is contagious.
Yes.
And I've noticed just in my business, and I know Steve could probably talk on this as well, is as Steve and I grew in our communication styles and, connecting deeper and, communicating from that leadership perspective of I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for my communication. I'm responsible of what others, see or hear. Then it became contagious in our business, and our team members started performing that way and started communicating that way. So it wasn't us just pushing the boulder up the mountain. Suddenly it was the team communicating, being responsible, influencing, making sure expectations were defined. It wasn't just one person, and that's powerful.
Super powerful. And I want to say something about that for people that haven't already experienced that. If you'll notice, we say take responsibility, right? You take responsibility for something, because when you take responsibility for something, it's powerful. And when I say be responsible for what they hear, or when you say I'm responsible for my team, for their results, it's not like you're responsible, like shame on you and you're in trouble and it's blame. It's no. It's the opportunity to be responsible. It's the power of taking that responsibility. It's not like you're to blame for it. It may be that they're not doing things really well, but when you say I'm responsible for that, you're going to look at it differently. you'll look at it in a way that that has you see an angle in on how you can make a difference, much more likely than if you're just blaming them,
Yeah. And when you have two people showing up doing that,
Oh, it's
caring
fabulous.
for that communication,
Yeah.
caring for that expectation, and they're both taking responsibility, the outcome is completely different. And the mindset about it is completely different.
And, I think you and Steve have a lot of this in your relationship with each other. One of the ways I say it is we're both 100% responsible for the relationship. And I'm not saying you're 100% responsible. I'm saying I'm 100%. And they're saying I'm 100%. So now, if somebody falls off a little bit, well, there's still plenty of coverage, right? But if you're both 50% responsible, oh no, look, I take care of my half. Okay, let's say someone falls down by 2% that day. Whoops, gone, right? Versus if both people are 100% and both people fall off 5%, well, there's still plenty of coverage, right?
Absolutely. And I think, I learned so much. I'm a great student. So when you were talking and teaching all those years at the retreats we're at, I took your course. I remember pulling over on the side of the road, and because it's the only time we could connect, and having the call on the side of the road, and you're like, "What's up, Steve?" I said, "I'm struggling. I'm not connecting. I'm not showing up. I'm showing up as who I think they want me to be." And you're like, you need to show up as you. So I stopped showing up as who I thought that crowd or audience needed, or who, I thought they needed me to be. And I just started showing up as myself. And then what I found was people who needed that Steve started showing up in my life and in my world, right? And Christine
you've given me goosebumps to my ankles a few times now with what you're saying.
And Christine is one of those people, that showed up in my life and was vulnerable and reached out to me because I, kept people at arm's length in a bubble. And when in my authentic self, I don't have to do that. And whoever doesn't need that authentic Steve doesn't show up. But I had more authentic, more meaningful relationships show up in my life since I could show up as myself, and share all my messes, right? Yeah. And share my vulnerability and challenges, and have more honest and meaningful relationships than ever. And I just always have to be myself. I don't ever have to script. I don't have to rehearse. I just show up as myself in that way. And one of the things with the mirror neurons, I just want to share, and I didn't even get it. I wondered what was going on, but until you said it, I was doing two different talks, and I noticed I was getting closer to the audience and they were leaning forward. So I don't know. And I was just like, what? At the end, I realized I was 20 feet past the podium in the audience, and they're all facing me, leaning forward in their chairs. So I don't know whether I was mirroring them or they were mirroring me, but it was such an engaging. I ended up in the middle of the floor, and everybody's turning around in their chairs facing me, leaning forward. So there's that mirror neuron. And I don't even remember what the talk was about. We were so connected, and I was so connected to the audience, which allowed them to be connected to me.
Well, and you caused that. I just want to be clear about that, because you were speaking. So that brings up two other things. Is that okay?
Sure.
So first off, as a speaker, I used to have bad audiences, and you've probably had a bad audience or two, Once I took on this mirror neuron thing, I've never had a bad audience since then. Zero. And big part of the reason is because if I look out there and it seems like it's turning into a bad audience, I don't blame them anymore. I just look over here and say, what could I do to give them something better to mirror, right?
Yeah.
So bingo, no bad audiences. And I'm not saying I'm not being Pollyanna about that. I really did think about what I could do, and I did it, and it worked. I turned what would have probably in the past been a bad audience. I've turned that experience around. And then the Gosh, the other thing, I forgot the other thing I was going to say, but it was about that, you know, just, oh, I think what I was going to say is you did that. Yes, this is what I was going to say. You did that. You caused that, right? Because you were leaning in, because you were so engaged, they felt safe and they mirrored you and they leaned in and they engaged, and you ended up really close to them and they were still leaning into you, and it was a fabulous experience. Now, that makes it seem like you're the big deal. And here was a big, huge realization that I had a little while ago, several years ago now, thankfully, because I used to kind of think, I mean, I don't think I paraded around like I was some kind of prima donna, but I used to kind of think I was the big deal, right? Like, because here I am, I'm speaking. They invited me to speak to this, you know, however many people in the audience, and I thought I was the big deal. But I had a huge realization that without their generous listening, I make no difference. I could go speak to 500,000 people, but if none of them were listening, I would make zero difference. So it really had me rethink the position of being a speaker from being, you know, on stage, kind of being the center of attention, being the big deal, you know, giving them the goods, to being really dependent on them for their listening to really make a difference. You know, I'll get paid if I show up and I speak, even if they're not listening. Probably I'll get paid, but I won't make any difference. And I want to make a difference. So to honor the audience for their listening became really, really important to me. And you still caused that. You know what I mean? You caused that. And
Yes. And I remember the formula I was using, making them the hero, I wrapped it up, because even a month later, the director of the Chamber of Commerce came over and she goes, you know, I wasn't sure where you were going with that. When you wrapped it all up, I was like, oh my gosh, he wrapped all the graduates up into that story and showed how they were overcoming their challenges and stepping into, you know, their strengths and bringing it back into their community, into their company. And she was like, that was like, you just made everybody feel like, everybody who was graduating, everybody who supported them, everybody who paid for them to be there, make them all feel that all their efforts and time were worth it. So it wasn't me. I was just making them, giving them an awareness that I had of all their efforts and what they had to go through. Really, that's what I was doing. And that was the connection.
You got the sacred honor of being a conduit for that.
Yes.
And you honored that, and you did a great job.
Yes. Yeah. But it was 100% authentic. 100%.
That's why. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Because they did a lot of work to get there. And a lot of people had to put a lot of effort forward to get there.
Yeah.
But speaking of 500,000 people, can you share your experience that you had in India?
Yeah. In a little while ago, in last October, I think it was, I went to India and I got to speak to 750,000 people. And, you know, it wasn't like they were all in a stadium looking at me directly. It was an entire city that had been set up for this. So there were a lot of people that I could see that could see me, but then there were people on rooftops and people in, you know, soccer fields, and there were big speakers and, you know, monitors put up. And it was a really, really interesting experience. I only spoke for 3 minutes. And I talked about empowering women leaders, and it turned out to be a much more important topic than I realized. You know, we were in a fairly rural part of India, and so I was really happy that I had chosen that topic. And you know, what blows my mind is I have a thing that I do with people to to just have them get present to the fact that they should prepare a little bit, and that, what they're doing is really important when they're speaking to groups. And so I multiply the time that the person is speaking by how many people are in the audience. So 3 times, let's call it 500,000, that's 150,000 minutes. Divided by 60 is some ridiculous number of hours of human life that I was responsible for in one 3-minute talk to 750,000 people. And, so I practiced for that. And it was a really hectic, wild, weird environment. So as a public speaker, you got to be ready for anything, and don't make it wrong. Just flow with it. They forced me to take my paper up there with me, and I didn't want to, but I did. And, but that was a heck of an experience. And there is just an energy and perception difference as the number of people in the audience goes up. But one of the things that I think is important to remember is the more you can just be yourself and be who you just really are, the better, no matter how many people are in the audience. Now, some things you may have to speak more, speak more loudly. You may have to do bigger gestures because so many people are so much further away. You may have to amplify yourself a little bit. But what people, it doesn't change. Nothing fundamentally changes from when you're going from one person that you really like and respect and enjoy talking to getting on a stage in front of 100 or 1,000 or whatever. The more you can keep it like it's a personal one-on-one conversation, the better. And as they say in Hollywood, the art is in hiding the art, I think.
And I think this is extremely relative, to being a business owner and being a leader and knowing how to communicate, to your team in your business. And I know, we've talked quite a bit on kind of like having the audience and showing up and being your authentic self and those mirror neurons, but it's as applicable. And this is me speaking from experience, John, and what I've learned from you and, what I brought into my business and even into my family is what I'm putting out there, the energy I'm putting out there is going to be the energy that I get back. So I have to be mindful of the energy I bring into that space, the mood I bring into that space, the feelings, some people say I have a poker face, but, my face will very much tell you if I want it to, how I'm feeling, and so that's being brought into the space. So when we're leaders, whether we're showing up, as the business owner, the manager, whether it's a 2-person team to a, 150 people team, whatever it is, or you're just coming into your family, we are responsible for how we show up. And a lot of the times their reaction to how we're communicating or what we're putting out there is going to be coming from something from us, how we're saying it, the energy we're putting out there, or how we're connecting with them. It could be in a negative or positive way. So I think that the communication, training that you give on leadership and how to show up and speak, it's so dynamic, not just to where if you want to be a TED Talk speaker, or if you want to be a better speaker in your business or doing presentations, or just showing up as a leader in your business or for your family, working with you, I think it gives and gives and gives, not only to the individual who's learning from you, but the people that they're connected to, whether it be family or team members or professional associates.
Well, that's an explicit goal of mine, is that this goes everywhere. This is not just for the TED stage. This is not just for the stage. This is for one-on-one conversations, town hall meetings, family, friends, weddings, funerals, birthdays, like it's everything. And what I love, going back to why I'm so passionate about it, it's almost going to make me emotional. Like, just people getting their authentic selves and getting that it's okay to be their authentic selves and having some tools to do that. So it's, safe and effective. And, it's just really, really fulfilling. It's really rewarding. And it has this side benefit of being super duper good for the bottom line. I don't have any issues at all with what I charge mentally, because the difference it makes is just priceless, and it's lifelong.
Yeah. And whether it's showing up, and I kind of laugh about this because I invest in self-improvement, in professional improvement. Steve and I both do. And the people that we work with, they do too, or they wouldn't be working with us.
Right.
But the return on investment, I think going down a path like this and really understanding that, hey, it's okay to show up as your true authentic self. It's okay to identify and be the leader that you are, not the leader that you think you should be. All of that, it's what you would pay, I think, in therapy to realize I am enough. And the way that I show up as my true authentic self is far more powerful, than trying to be something I'm not. And it doesn't create confusion in your relationships, which is probably going to save therapy money for them as well.
Yeah. Right. So, exactly.
Yeah. And then the way that the people show up in your life and your business for you to support you, that's tenfold as well. Like, it's one of those things that you can't really put a price tag on, because the return on investment, it's infinite. It's you're investing in people, relationships, and how they show up and what they do for you on a one-on-one basis and as a team in a business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And John, so there's a couple things I want before I forget. So you used the word "and" when you said this, and then you went to that. And it was very interesting. You shared that on a retreat we were on together. And I used it immediately in a conversation with my wife. And she immediately noticed, you are communicating with me so much better. And I have used "and," since then so much. So one of the things, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but since we first started working together 5-6 years ago, my business has more than doubled. My staff has more than doubled. And
congratulations.
Thank you. I think a huge part of that has been my ability to communicate effectively in a meaningful way. And always being honest and authentic. Yep. So I never have to remember any bull crap that I made up or any how did I feel then. I'm just authentic all the time. So people always know what to expect. And one of the things that people share with me is one of the easiest, they always know what to expect from me and with me. And I'm going to goof off. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to say things wrong, get things wrong. It's all, and I'm fine with it. I feel it's just part of, if you want to be in this world and people are like, hey, guess what? I make mistakes too. I goof off. I make errors. We're alike. And I can still be the leader of the company in a really powerful way and show them the direction and the vision. And we can all be all right being exactly who we are. And I think that's why we have such low turnover in my company, both for my customers and because I'm telling my customers, hey, guess what? I'm not perfect. We're not perfect, but we're going to try to fix this. We're going to try to work together always. And just always being authentic and true, it becomes much easier to grow and build a company.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
So Don, I know we're coming. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and just to close the loop on that "and" thing, there's just a fundamental difference if we're roommates and I say to my roommate, I really like you, but I hate it when you play that music. That's one thing. Or if I say, I really like you, and I just can't stand it when you play that music, because but cancels everything that came before it out, so, and leaves that there, but still communicates the other thing. Yeah. That's what you mean. Yeah. And,
Yes, absolutely,
I
yes.
love that your wife noticed it. That's so awesome.
She noticed it right away. She appreciated it though.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely helps. I've experienced it. I try to pull that and versus but in communications because it invalidates the point or what the person is doing right or the positive that you're trying to put out there.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I know we're coming to the end of our time today, and we want to know if somebody wanted to connect with you or work with you, how would they connect? I know John, you're going to be at our Mind Your Own Business Retreat in the fall, which is the last week of October.
Yeah.
We kind of already talked about some of the things. You're going to have almost a full day of working, with our attendees there, which I'm super excited about. Even though I've taken, your classes, every time I work with you or connect with you, I take something away. So I know some of the people there have worked with you in the past and they're still excited, to come and work with you again and see you. So I'm excited about that. We're going to share the link about our Mind Your Own Business Retreat. So if you want to
It's a great
learn
place
and connect,
to get me.
Yeah, in person, you definitely join us there. But
Christine, if I can say this, and I don't mean this, well, anyway, this could sound bad, but I don't mean it that way. Coming to that retreat and getting everything else they get plus me it's a very, I charge a lot and I love you guys, and we made it affordable for me to be there. So it is not a bad, if somebody's really inspired to work with me, that is a very good deal, because you get all the other stuff plus me at a very good rate. Did that sound terrible, or did that?
No, it did not. We get it, because, I would pay that just to go spend the day in your workshop, because I know how it's impacted me in my life and my whole company. So to me, you would be worth it. But plus you're going to get Christine and you're going to get me, and you're going to come away with a strategic plan for 2024. I mean, there's so much value.
People attending.
Amazing people who are going to be there.
Yeah.
Successful people and people who have been through a lot and are willing to share. And they're bringing their emerging leaders who are excited to be meeting you and learning how to speak more like a leader and as their authentic selves. So it absolutely is it's a great deal for what the price is. And you get all the lodging and meals, hotel, fireside chats,
beautiful
cocktails
place,
in the evening. It's free time, where a lot of the great conversations happen in those open spaces. So,
Steve, that was one of the best things about the TED conference. And they kind of got away from it as it got more popular. But one of the big things about the TED conference is they had these big blocks of time where you didn't have anything scheduled. And you could hang out with people and just talk. And that was some of the most valuable time I ever spent at the TED conference, was in between the talks. The talks were kind of like the bait to get people to come, but the real, so I think you've got a really great, looking at the whole thing, I just think it's going to be fabulous for people.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful and calm environment as well, which I just love. It's just connecting with nature, getting fresh air, some space is fantastic. So if they don't manage, our listeners here don't manage to get to the retreat, how would they get a hold of you? And, what ways do you work with business owners?
So there are a number of ways that I work with business owners, and, my favorite way is to come be in person, and my in-person time is super limited for the rest of the year. Just in the vein of being really authentic, it's been a tough year for me. I lost my dad. I had a post-surgical shoulder infection. My mom turned out to have dementia, much worse than any of us realized, which apparently is more common than I realized. For a while, I just was beating myself up for that. I was like, dude, what kind of a loser were you that you didn't know? My dad just helped her cover it up. It's just how that generation does it. And so I took a lot of time off. My in-person time is pretty limited. I have some. That's my favorite way to do it. And with my trainings, it's a great, I don't call them team building trainings because we're not going to do the trust fall and stuff like that. It's team building on a much deeper, more emotional level. And I guess you guys could probably attest to that. I don't even say team building when I talk about it in the brochure or whatever, but I love to do in-person training. I've got limited time left for that this year. I also have an online course, which I use with my one-on-one coaching. So I do the majority of my work now is one-on-one coaching via Zoom, and it includes my training in a really, really good, well done online course. I had a great team that helped me and do that. And it's really good, bite-sized chunks. And then I do one-on-one coaching. I can also do small group coaching that way. And if people are budget constrained and they just, they don't want to fly me out, they can't get everybody together, I've been doing Zoom training since 2020 and can totally do that as well. And the premier program is the Speak Like a Leader boot camp, which probably could have a better name. And that can go anywhere from a half a day to 3 days, depending on how much personal interaction, how big the group is, whether you want to do some media training type add-in. And then I also do a lot of pitch coaching if people are out there pitching to raise money, entrepreneurs, nonprofits. And I also do a lot of work on specifically with storytelling. And happy to do any or all of that in person or on Zoom or a combination. And like I said, the one-on-one coaching is what I'm really focused on right now. And that's, that's not inexpensive, but it is life-altering. And I work with top leaders at places like Johnson & Johnson and NASA and Boston Scientific on stuff like that. So, if they reach out and tell me that they heard me here on your podcast, I would love to just I'll give them 30 minutes instead of 15, and we'll have a conversation. I'll make sure they get something really valuable out of that conversation that they can take away, even if they never talk to me again. And there might be something for us to do. So would be super happy. It's for, I think fundamentally people want to create trust. They want to be memorable. They want to inspire loyalty, that kind of stuff. And that is priceless. And that is what I support people in doing. And it's for anybody. It's not just for TED Talkers. It's not just for top leaders at Johnson & Johnson. I think you guys know Russ Harlow, who owns like a disaster remediation company, cleaning up fire and mold and stuff. He did one of my group courses, and it really blew him out of the water how inspiring his story turned out to be about his business. And he uses that everywhere now, and it's made an enormous difference for him, so.
Yeah, I know Russ is a client of ours, and we've had the pleasure of working with him for years. I know when he took your, coaching course on this, speaking, it really made a big difference. And I think too, it took something for him that he was afraid to share with people.
For sure.
And, out of the fear of being judged. And it really turned it into something inspirational and connective. And where the people that he shared this story with, they just had so much admiration, for
Yes.
him and his journey and the courage that he
Yes.
has. I think it shifted how they see him as a business owner and an
Yeah.
individual. And I
You
think
gave me
that's where the
goosebumps
power
again.
is in you
Well, and
working with people.
you're absolutely right, Christine. And the other thing that I think it shifted, and you tell me if I'm like going overboard here, I think it shifted how he saw himself.
Oh, absolutely. It
And that to me
absolutely
is
did.
kind of one of the most important pieces, because that was there all along. He just hadn't gotten the glimpse of it yet.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you had said to me. Well, I say to me because on the first podcast I heard you on, you said two things, and I felt like in that moment you were speaking directly to me, and it really kind of put me in check. But it's live in the listening of those who love you, and we have a tendency to not see ourselves as others see us. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things with Russ. I think, the people around him saw him one way and he wasn't seeing himself that way until, he took your class.
Yeah.
And then it shifted how he saw himself, and he sees himself as others do as well, that have
Yeah.
admiration, for him, and,
Yeah.
all of his gifts and how he shows up. That's
Yeah.
something I know that you did for me over the years of us connecting. We've had some powerful conversations, which has given me some powerful realizations as a leader and a business owner. And I know I wouldn't be sitting here today talking about what I talk about every day, doing the workshops that I do, doing podcasts, and coaching others and helping them, if it wasn't for, the first domino that fell, which was me hearing you on that podcast that morning. And believe me, I listened to so many books and so many podcasts, and it was that one conversation that called me out. And I was like, all right, we got to figure this out and get busy, because I've got some work to do. And here we are 5 years later.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different world.
Well, like I said, it's been a tough year for me, and it has been, I think I make a similar mistake to many, many people, maybe specifically males, but I think many people nowadays, where I kind of equate my value to my ability to work and my ability, like I got all that sort of stuck together. So this year, experiencing what I've experienced and the difficulty it put in my business, and the grief is such a difficult, strange animal, and some fear of that infection. I'm off the antibiotics. It's been 2 days and it'll be a month and I feel fine. So that's cool. But it's been a blow to my self-esteem, which is really an interesting thing for me to have gone through, and be going through still to some degree. So what both of you have said means a lot to me, and to know that I am that person in your world gives me something to live into. And I really, really appreciate it. And I think that ultimately this is going to give me and has already given me a much deeper compassion and a much deeper, just ability to be with people and to just understand the challenges that we all face. So, but the big point that I want to make is just that me hearing that from you, and the things that you've both said that remind me of who I am in your listening, really means a lot.
Well, we appreciate you, John. You always show up just so authentically and connect, and you bring wisdom and value in every conversation. So it was just such a pleasure for you to come on the podcast so we can share our amazing relationship with you, with our listeners today. And I hope they got just as much value as we did when we first connected with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you so much, John. It was great having you as a guest. It was really an honor for me to share my stories of your impact that you've had in my life, my company, my community, my family. So thank you so much for that. You
are so welcome.
And we're going to put your contact information in the show notes. So if you want to connect with John, there'll be some links in there and some instructions on how you can connect with him. And even if it's, you just want to test it out and have that 30-minute conversation, I know you will not regret it. So it will be fantastic.
And I almost never discount my online course, but I will send you a savings code that's good for, a little while longer. And it'll give you 20% off if people want to just test the waters by taking that course. And I promise that course by itself is absolutely life altering. And then I'll, give you some ways for people to get in touch with me.
Great.
And thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, John. Thanks everyone for joining us today. And we'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.